See if we can do this rapid fire. Like, keep the prospects coming, and we'll keep the answers coming.
All right. Let's start with a guy that we both really like. Probably a second or third round prospect, depending on the ACL rehab. John Metchie. Do I like John Metchie more than Alex Barth, noted Alabama fan, likes John Metchie? I had him as my second best wide receiver in the draft. It got a lot of negative attention on my Twitter feed, people telling me I'm absolutely crazy for having him that high. But Alex, you can quickly give your Metchie take, and then I'll tell people why I like him so much.
Yeah, I had Metchie as my before all the injuries. I had Metchie as my third wide receiver in the draft. I had Williams, Olave, and then him. My thing is, as it relates to the Patriots, I think you need to get help immediately. I think you need somebody who can come into camp and work with Mac Jones in camp, build that chemistry. Metchie might be able to play this year, but it might not be till like October. And we saw what happened when N'Keal Harry essentially lost his rookie training camp and rookie preseason. And look, I think John Metchie's way more talented than N'Keal Harry, but it just, their history of developing wide receivers, it concerns me taking a guy who's going to miss the whole preseason process his first year. So I think if you go out, you sign a Chris Godwin, you trade for Calvin Ridley, then yeah, I'm definitely sold on John Metchie in the second round. If you're only going to make one wide receiver addition, it's going to be in the draft. I want somebody who's going to be around. I want somebody who's going to be there from day one. You know, Olave, David Bell, George Pickens, whoever it is. So that's where I'm at on Metchie. Love him as a player. If he was healthy, I'd be pounding the table for him for the Patriots. I just think it's a Patriots-specific thing where I don't love that he's not there day one. I don't love it. It just bugs me. I can't help it, but it's how I feel. And I feel the same way about Jameson Williams, too.
Fair enough. It's a good point. Now, my counterpoint to it would be, first and foremost, if Bill O'Brien's the offensive coordinator, then there's not much of a transition for John Metchie. Secondly, he played with Mac Jones at a very high level 2 years ago, right? And Mac Jones's final year, 1 year starter, full year as a starter at Alabama. So he's got a great rapport with Mac Jones. He's already been in Bill O'Brien's system. So if you have those two guys here in New England, then the training camp, getting up to speed, OTAs, mini camp, that sort of thing, I don't think is as much of a factor. The other thing is that the word is right now is that John Metchie is way ahead of schedule in his ACL rehab. Obviously, we're still way too early for him to be running at full speed or anything like that. But apparently they feel like he's going to be able to go by like August or September. And if that's the case, let's also keep in mind that ACLs, the rehab and the surgery has become such a science and such a machine at this point that it's not like it was 5-10 years ago where those guys were out for a year plus and weren't the same and things like that. This is a really quick injury for a serious, significant long-term injury. They're really figuring out how to expedite and efficiently go about the process. So I think that John Metchie will be healthy sooner rather than later next year. The reason why I love him so much as a player, I love separators. I love guys with speed. I love guys that know how to get open. I like guys that can play inside and outside and off the line of scrimmage as well as on the line as an ex-receiver. I love guys that can create with the ball in their hands, right, and create explosive plays. If you're somebody like Metchie, who you can turn on the tape and find a 3-step slant of him getting open at the top of the route and then taking the ball 40, 50 yards after the catch, or you can find him running a vertical and get open behind the defense and go ahead and make big plays that way, that's my kind of receiver. I would much rather get a guy that can separate, that can run, that's fast, that gets open at the top of the route and through the break point than somebody that is constantly wearing coverage and has to succeed by scheme, by contested catches. So my preference is always going to be to lean towards the Metchie types, right? Metchie, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Jameson Williams. I think those guys are on a different level in this draft compared to some of the others. But here's another one that I think is going to get some buzz, certainly once the combine comes rolling around. And this is another, I like Treylon Burks. I think Treylon Burks is a talented receiver. He's probably going to run a lot faster than N'Keal Harry ran. He's not N'Keal Harry, right? He's a much more explosive athlete. He's probably going to be a 4.3 guy at 6'2", 6'3". So this is a ridiculously explosive, good athlete. But all of his targets in college, his average depth of target was a little bit over 9 yards. because he's either getting balls at the line of scrimmage or near the line of scrimmage and asked to run with the football, or he's getting contested catch targets down the field. There's nothing else, right? It's either the behind the line stuff or the deep ball. There's nothing else in between. That obviously worries me a ton about his projection with the Patriots.
Yeah, again, it's a Patriots thing. I like him as a player, but, is he N'Keal Harry? Is he A.J. Brown? This is where it's something I said I'm going to make a point of focusing on this offseason, nature versus nurture. I think Treylon Burks, a lot of his success is going to be predicated on where he lands. We've seen the Patriots struggle to develop that kind of wide receiver. If they draft Treylon Burks, it's a mulligan on N'Keal Harry. And Burks may be a better player, but they've still got to be able to maximize him and use him to his strengths, which they couldn't do with N'Keal. So Treylon Burks worries me. Can we bring up, there's been a lot of comments about Skye Moore.
Let me get to, we got a lot of receivers. Everybody wants to talk.
Skye Moore is a receiver. Have you not done Skye Moore yet?
Yeah, I haven't studied. I know he's a receiver, but I wanted to get to a few others. I'm going down here. The list. I'm back a ways. A lot of comments. We appreciate you guys. George Pickens from Georgia. Probably a first round top 50 talent if he stays healthy the entire year last year at Georgia and doesn't have some of the speed bumps, let's call them, in the road earlier on in his career. Really, really talented guy. Easy speed. And when I watch him run routes, or you watch any receiver run routes, you can just tell by the way that defensive backs play a guy if he's got real speed, right? If you feel it, you can see it. And when you watch George Pickens run, whether it's running a vertical over the top or then running the vertical route tree at the intermediate level where he's snapping routes off and creating separation at the top of the route by pushing vertical, he's got the full repertoire of downfield vertical breaks or the intermediate stop routes, comebacks along the sideline where he loses coverage because of that vertical stem.
Yeah, I like Pickens. He's fast. He plays the game with a nasty streak, which you love, especially, the Patriots love that at the wide receiver position. So
yeah,
he might be in between. I don't know that he's the best receiver on the board at 21, and I think he's off the board by the time the Patriots make their pick in the second round. He's maybe a guy they trade back and grab maybe like in the early portion of the second round would be probably how they end up with him. But I wouldn't rule him out as a possibility, no.
Yeah. We talked a lot about Chris Olave already. I know you wanted to mention Skye Moore.
Yeah.
All right. So you just go. I can't find the Skye Moore question, but
it was like half of the comments for like 5 minutes there.
Okay. There's a lot of things I'm scrolling through. Go ahead on Skye Moore.
While you're looking for that, see if you can find the Verone McKinley comment. Skye Moore. So we did this a little bit last year, right? With the tiers of the different types of wide receiver. And when you look at those slot gadget, the Debo Samuel, Tyreek Hill kind of players in this draft, I think Wan'Dale Robinson's at the top of that class. He's going to be probably an early second round pick. I think Skye Moore is the guy you take if you miss out on Wan'Dale Robinson. Now he's out of Western Michigan. He doesn't necessarily have the same talent on the other side of the ball on the tape, but the same idea. A guy you can line up all around the formation, fast player, excellent with the ball in his hands. He's somebody who's absolutely on the radar. And then just to keep going, so I think Wan'Dale Robinson's your early round guy for that mold. I think you go Skye Moore in the middle rounds, and then these are some other names I've seen in the comments. You go to the late rounds. If you're still looking for that gadget player, then you start talking about Slade Bolden. Bo Melton from Rutgers is a guy who's tearing it up at the Senior Bowl right now. So those are the tiers of those guys. I put Slade Bolden in the middle, but I think he's somebody, he's definitely a name Patriots fans should know.
Yeah, Skye Moore can fly. That guy's fast. I think he probably plays faster than he times. And what I think is fascinating about the draft process now, I'm not sure how much the Patriots are delving into this, but a lot of teams are using the chip technology and pads to use actual play speed on the field, right? They're not actually using 40 times anymore. They're using what players are actually running in games during the college football season more so than studying 40 times. And I think Skye Moore is one of those guys, and Wan'Dale, I think it fits in this category as well, that plays faster than they might actually time in the 40. Right. So I think that's going to be an interesting dichotomy going forward in the draft in general, is how many people care about the 40 times versus how many teams are still are now moving on to the time in game, chips or using the mathematicians or whatever they do, formulas to figure out how fast guys are running during games during the season. All right, let's move off of wide receivers here for a second. I know everybody loves their wide receivers, but I want to talk about Jordan Davis, who I posted about today. Got a lot of comments about it, Alex, on both sides of the coin. I absolutely love Jordan Davis for the Patriots in the first round if he's there. We were texting about this before the show, and this draft in the first round, it feels like there's 19, maybe 20 really good prospects for the Patriots in the first round if you take out the quarterbacks, and God help us all if they draft a guard in the first round. So let's take out the guards also. And you just look at all the other positions. And I think that Jordan Davis is right near the top of my list, if not the top guy in terms of what might be available to the Patriots at 21. Probably a more of a 2-down nose tackle at this point in terms of where he's going to fit in the NFL. So maybe not a top 10, top 15 guy. If this is 20 years ago, he's going top 5. Right, this guy can move at 6'6", 340 pounds, an absolute mountain. Can't be moved off the line of scrimmage. Can't single block him. Dominant run defender. Where do you stand on the Patriots taking Jordan Davis? Because he does have a somewhat limited, athletic profile to be the DT. He's not Christian Barmore, right? He's a little bit different than that.
He's so athletic. By the way, he's not 26. He's 22. I don't know where that came from. He's so athletic. I think he's a 3-down player. I think he gets underrated as a pass rusher. And if he's on the board, I'd snag him. I still think there's no shot he makes it to 21. I look at, I said this on the show a couple weeks ago. Derrick Brown from Auburn was a 7th overall pick by the Panthers. What was that? 2 years ago now?
Yes.
Jordan Davis, nothing against Derrick Brown. I think Derrick Brown's a fine player. Jordan Davis, miles ahead of where Derrick Brown was when he went 7th overall. I think he's going to pop at the combine. Like, he's at 340. He's going to run around a 5. He's going to run around a 5-second 4. He's that athletic. I truly believe that. And he's going to fly up the boards. And I think he's off the board top 15. I really do. If not, I'd absolutely take him at 21. I think him and Barmore would be a problem. We talk about all these ways offenses are trying to innovate the game and come up with these new schemes. How about a pass rush where your 2 best pass rushers are your defensive tackles? And one of them's 340 and can move like a ballerina. Like, talk about innovative. There you go. I just don't think he gets to that point. I don't think he does. Somebody in the chat bringing up Travis Jones. I think Travis Jones is more of a 2-down traditional nose tackle, but they need a guy like that. Yeah. I'd love to see Travis Jones in New England. I would take Jordan Davis at 21 if he's there. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not counting on him being there.
Yeah, so Jordan Davis, I think, is a little bit different than your prototypical nose tackle because he is so physically dominant and he's so elite that he can take over a game by pushing the pocket. Like, he's that physically strong.
This isn't a guy – we think of nose tackles as guys who just eat space.
Right.
He's not just eating space. I mean, he's pushing defenders out of the way. Yeah. He's getting into the backfield. He's disrupting. He plays like an edge defender, but he does it from the middle of the defense at 340 pounds.
Yeah, he's a monster. And you talk about a lot of people are saying, oh, wait, well, that's not how you stop Kansas City and Buffalo by drafting a 340-pound nose tackle. But in a lot of ways, I actually think it is because you line them up at 0 or the 1 technique right over the center in the A-gap, and you start pushing that pocket on top of Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. That's exactly what they don't want, right? They don't want guys in their face. They don't want guys in their laps. They don't want to have to escape or move out the pocket in terms of going up the field. They want to go around the pocket. They want to go outside and get on the perimeter. If you can have a guy like Jordan Davis who can collapse the pocket from the inside and get right into their laps, not to mention at 6'6", get the hands up in the passing lane, that's a really big problem for them. So I also would say that a big problem of why they couldn't stop Buffalo in the last 2 games is because they couldn't have personnel on the field that against the run and the pass. They could load up to stop the run or they could load up to stop the pass, but they were vulnerable to one thing all the time, right? And that makes it very difficult to play defense. If you have Jordan Davis out there with Christian Barmore and Lawrence Skye and maybe a big linebacker like a Juwan Bentley, now you can probably stop the run with 3 or 4 guys. And you've really shored up that part of your game plan just with 4 guys. And then you can kind of build out from there. So I think that Jordan Davis definitely would help them against some of these spread teams. Even though he might not be Aaron Donald, his ability to go out there and basically be a one-man wrecking crew against the run allows you to have everybody else do other things, right? And kind of frees up the rest of the defense to stop the pass.
Again, people want to make comps for Jordan Davis and say, oh, well, a defensive tackle can't do this, a defensive tackle can't do that. I don't know that there's a defensive, Jordan Davis is a new kind of player. I don't know that there is a comp for Jordan Davis. I don't know that there is somebody you plug in and say, well, look how this guy plays, so that's what Jordan Davis is going to give you. I don't think that exists. I think Jordan Davis is truly new, which is part of the reason I think Bill Belichick would love him. But at the same time, it's why you can't just dismiss a defensive tackle as somebody who's not going to help them against the pass. He's built differently.
Okay, one more wide receiver I do want to touch on, and then I want to go to corners here. They're getting asked a lot of cornerback questions. Christian Watson, who the Patriots met with down in Mobile, has had a strong week at the Senior Bowl. 6'4", 6'5", 4.3 40-yard dash time. Played at North Dakota State with Trey Lance last year. And I remember watching Trey Lance tape, and essentially Christian Watson, now granted at the FCS level, was Trey Lance's Mike Evans, right? He could just, if he got one-on-one with Watson down the field, you can throw the ball up to him. He has fluidity that's pretty darn good for a guy of his size too, to have that ability to create some separation. So he's not Velcroed to coverage all the time and only winning in contested situations. As an outside X receiver, really like him. And I think if you're going to have a guy like that, what we have seen with Mac Jones is that unless you're going to have Jameson Williams, right, or Tyreek Hill level speed down the field, you need somebody that can go up and get the ball a little bit, because the ball is not, he doesn't have one of those howitzer arms where he's going to drill it 50, 60 yards down the field. If you have a guy like Christian Watson on the other end of that pass in Buffalo on the opening drive that Nelson Aguilar just kind of watched and let Micah Hyde jump, you never know. It could have a different result with a receiver that can go up and get the ball like Christian Watson can.
And it's interesting. I'm looking at this right now. They met with, I think it's Romeo Doubs as well from Nevada, another big receiver.
Yeah.
So they're looking for the 6'4", 6'5" perimeter guys.
Yeah.
That's, very early indication. I like Watson too. I mean, he needs, the scary thing with Watson, I'm not saying I wouldn't want them to pick him. He's very raw.
Yeah.
Again, he's big. He's very fast. You check those boxes. You can't teach that. Can't teach size. Can't teach speed. Beyond that, he needs some coaching. And Romeo Doubs, thank you. That's hasn't necessarily been a strong point here.
Yeah.
So who do they hire as the OCs, their new wide receivers coach, that kind of thing? But I wouldn't rule out Christian Watson, not by any means.
The FCS Mike Evans. That's what I'm calling him. That guy, just like when Johnny Manziel was at A&M with Mike Evans, and you just see Manziel run around for 5 seconds and then throw some pop-up down the field to some receiver named Mike Evans at the time. That was what you could see on the tape at North Dakota State with Trey Lance and Christian Watson. A player that can just has elite go above the rim status. This isn't like just good above the rim status. This guy can really go get it.